Hey everyone, this is Steven here, back at it again with another video. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the secondary market prices of PSA grading compared to SGC grading, and then we're going to talk about why I personally think that SGC could be a good buy right now. But before we get into that, if you enjoy this type of content and would like to see more in the future, please feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe. So now that we got all of that out of the way, we can get to the actual video here. I did want to say that I hope everyone's having a great weekend so far and getting ready for the week ahead of us. The main goal and purpose of today's video is to do some comparisons between resale prices on the secondary market between PSA graded cards and SGC graded cards. In this particular video, we're not going to be touching on how much it costs to grade with a specific company, the turnaround times, or whether it makes sense to grade with a particular company or the other. For this video, we're only going to be talking about picking up cards on the secondary market. The main reason why I put together this video, there's been a lot of other fellow content creators out there that have been talking about this Joe Burrow rookie card, and in particular this is the 2020 Prizm base rookie card. I have this both in a PSA 10 and also an SGC 10. Those are the two grading companies we're going to be comparing today. Now, during the peak of these Joe Burrow cards was when around the time he was in the Super Bowl, and as you can see here, the blue line is the PSA 10, and during the hype of all this, a PSA 10 of this Joe Burrow base rookie card was selling for about $678. Now, at the same time, an SGC 10, which both of these are gem mint cards, an SGC 10 was selling for $364. So again, at one point, the PSA 10 sold for $678. Whereas the SGC 10 sold for $364. Now, I made a video about this in the past, I want to say about 6 months ago, where there was a pretty large discrepancy between PSA resale value to SGC resale value, and that was throughout the 10s and also the 9s. However, as of late, it does seem like the SGC 9s are closing the gap to the PSA 9s, but this video is mainly going to be focused on 10s, because it does appear that there's still a pretty decent gap between PSA 10s and also SGC 10s. We're going to go over a couple of these cards and just show the gap here, but if you look at this card here, that's a pretty substantial gap between the two. It's almost half of the price just to get it in an SGC 10, which is technically the same grade. Some of the more recent sales, it looks like the last sale, we go to last average price here, the PSA 10 sold for about $404, where the SGC 10 sold for $240. So a very large gap between SGC 10s and PSA 10s for this Joe Burrow rookie card. The next card I wanted to look at is this Justin Herbert 2020 Prizm base rookie card. I have this also in a PSA 10 and an SGC 10, both gem mint cards. If we take a look at the last average sale price, the PSA 10 of this card sold for $375, whereas the SGC 10 sold for $232. So again, very large discrepancy between the PSA 10 price and the SGC price for some of these newer modern quarterbacks. Now I quickly want to switch over to some basketball cards. I have Luka Doncic and I have his 2018 Prizm base rookie card. The gap does appear to be a little bit smaller here, where the PSA 10 sold for $419, whereas the SGC 10 sold for $310. So again, a pretty decent sized gap there, but it's not as big as some of the football cards we just looked at. Now we'll take a look at some baseball cards. I'm going to start off with Julio Rodriguez. I have his 2019 Bowman Chrome Prospects. This is the Mega Box Refractor rookie card. I have this in a PSA 10 and also an SGC 10. For the PSA 10, the last average sale price was $215 in the PSA 10, whereas the SGC 10 sold for $160. So again, not quite the large gap that we initially looked at, but still a pretty sizable gap between the two. And then the next baseball card I have here is this 2014 First Bowman Chrome Prospects of Mookie Betts. I have this in a PSA 9 and also in SGC 9. The PSA 9 last sale was about $61, whereas the SGC 9 was about $33. So again, almost half the price of the PSA sale for this Mookie Betts First Bowman Prospects card. So now that we looked at that fairly small sample size of cards, it's still pretty apparent that PSA graded cards sell for quite a bit more on the secondary market compared to SGC graded cards. Over the past 6 months or so, it does look like SGC is closing the gap a little bit, especially in the grade 9, so a PSA 9 compared to an SGC 9. But overall, and even more in particular, in the grade 10, it does look like there's pretty big gaps between PSA graded cards and SGC graded cards. Now I wanted to talk about why it could be a decent time to really start looking at SGC graded cards as an option on the secondary market. I did want to start off with a couple of cons of buying SGC on the secondary market. Then I'm going to finish off with some of the pros of picking up SGC on the secondary market. Some of the cons are a lot of people out there don't really like the look of the slabs or how big the slabs are compared to some of the other slabs of the graded company. Another con is that if you are an investor, so if you are actually into selling some of your cards, the audience for SGC cards is a lot smaller than PSA cards, so the liquidity of an SGC card is a lot lower than the liquidity of a PSA graded cards because there's not as many SGC collectors or investors out there compared to PSA. So those are a couple cons of picking up SGC cards. So now I wanted to switch over to some of the positives or the pros of looking at SGC in the secondary market. The first one is just the huge price discrepancy for some cards that you can find between PSA and SGC. So if we take a look at this Mookie Betts card here, for example, a PSA 9 of this Chrome Prospects rookie card recently sold for $60.50 in a PSA 9. Now if we take a look at literally the same card just in a different SGC slab, both the grade 9, but the SGC 9 recently sold for $33.01. So that's almost half the price of the PSA 9 for the same card just in a different slab. So I do see that as a huge positive that you can be picking up the same card and in some cases for half the price of a PSA graded card. So I do think that that's a pretty big positive. Now I'm going to list out a couple of scenarios where potentially over time this could be pretty beneficial. No one really knows what's going to happen to these grading companies over the long term. And I'm not saying this is going to happen or anything, but there is a scenario where over time, maybe it's the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years or so, where SGC could potentially close the gap between PSA on the secondary market. So say if you bought this SGC 9 for $33, but over time the gap between SGC and PSA gets a lot closer, that just means that this card is going to be increasing in value most likely faster than the PSA graded card. So there is a scenario where SGC could start to close the gap even more to PSA over the next decade or so. However, there is another scenario where PSA continues to widen the gap. So that is another possibility, but again, no one really knows what's going to happen in the future. And another scenario where it could make sense to start taking a look at SGC graded cards is that if you really wanted to just maximize the value of a particular card, if you're not really interested in collecting the card, but just want to maximize the value of a card and sell it in the future, you can always buy the card now for sometimes upwards of a 50% discount to PSA. You can always buy the card now and you can crack it out of the SGC case and submit it to PSA. Now you are going to have to pay the grading fee. Right now it's $100, so the math really has to work out for that. But a lot of people are assuming that over time that PSA grading fee will come down. So you can always just have the card, hold on to it for a little while until the PSA grading fees come down a little bit, and then you can always crack it out and submit it to PSA. And then once that PSA card returns, you're now going to have a card with that PSA value, which as of right now really holds a premium over all of the other grading companies. So those are some of the pros and cons of picking up SGC cards on the secondary market. I'm currently a pretty big fan of SGC just for the fact that you can pick up the same card at a very big discount compared to PSA, which I really like. And then there's also a lot of options in the future, like I mentioned, where SGC cards could become more valuable over time and start to close the gap, or there's always the potential to crack the card out of an SGC case and submit to PSA or another alternative in the future. Let me know down in the comments what you guys and gals currently think of SGC compared to some of the other grading companies. But with all that being said, I hope you found this video somewhat entertaining and also informative. If you did, please feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe. Thanks and have a good rest of your day. Bye.